Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Fresh Ink. Donnie Rollins here to my left, RJ Carvis to my right, Adam Johnson.
Yep.
We are here on the cusp of August,
Ooh, the precipice.
rolling into the dog days of summer here.
Dog days.
And RJ kind of brought this to my desk, and this is going to be the topic of today's debate. We always like to go back and forth and stuff. And a snapshot of the autographed sports memorabilia industry. So pretty much a rundown of everything, a lot of data that's going on in the sports industry. Yeah. Is that correct? It's from sportsmemorabilia.com?
Yeah, we're going to take a little deep dive into kind of what the industry looks like, all sports, different types of products, different athletes.
And there's a lot of stuff on these sheets that was completely surprising.
Oh, yeah.
Completely surprising. And they're one of the first topics that we're going to get into is probably the most surprising one, in my opinion. So this sheet has it broken down. It's a little bit of a book. Memorabilia sales by team and player. We have top 5 teams by popularity. Memorabilia sales by U.S. state. We have total memorabilia sales each league represents. Memorabilia sales by category, jerseys and photos and helmets and things like that.
Yada, yada, yada.
Main authentication agencies. These are pretty straightforward. Then we have major auction houses, some weird facts, and that'll be
that.
That'll be it.
And we're are we talking about where did this come from? This data?
This sports memorabilia.
Sports mem, yeah.
Okay, sports mem, and it's got to be old, right? So this is
I would say
we're using this as a starting point.
Probably a year and a half.
Correct.
Year and a half, 2 years old.
I think it's probably 2.
It's going to be interesting too as we kind of digress along this little packet. Where do we think it's moved since this was written?
Yeah. Just because thumbing through here, it's moved a ton. But again, this is just a starting talking point, and we'll see how it's moved.
I'm even baffled if this was 2017.
Yeah, so we'll call it 2016 because I know there's a couple things on here.
So even if this was 20, even if I would still be baffled by a lot of this data.
Right.
Anyways.
No, I agree with you on that.
So
let's
run it. It is 2016.
Let's dive in.
It is 2016.
DJ Donnie.
So yeah. DJ Donnie, I love that.
So we'll talk. So we're centering where it was in 2016, and then where we think it is
right.
now.
Yeah,
got it.
So the first thing is memorabilia sales by team, and the top 5 teams in this list represent 19% of total revenue for sales.
Okay.
Memorabilia. Number 1, New York Yankees at 7% of the industry.
27 rings. It makes
27
sense.
rings.
It makes sense. The history's deep.
100%. It's the best.
And you got to think about this. You're selling things like Babe Ruth autographed baseballs.
Sure.
Things that are 50 plus grand.
Right.
Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio. Anytime those things move, that needle is going to go up because, well, the monetary value of that is just ridiculous.
Right. And they have guys like Aaron Judge, who are still some of the most desired players.
You could put on an autograph show with retired Yankees and you'd still sell out.
It's called the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, pretty much.
Literally.
Pretty much.
Classic.
I think that number 7.1 has probably gone up since the last 2 years. I bet they represent more of the industry now than they did in 2016.
Yeah.
I'd play devil's advocate there. I'd say gone down a little bit because the industry is more football now.
Wrong.
Well, football.
Okay.
Because we're talking team.
Yeah, and
right.
I will get into that football thing because there are the industry's actually shifted even more towards football.
Tons.
So following the Yankees, we have the New York Giants.
Definitely not top 5 anymore.
Nope. The Cowboys, which are probably in the top 5.
Higher.
The Packers.
I believe it.
I believe it, but it baffles me every time.
I can't see it.
The whole small town thing. It just shouldn't work, but it just does.
I think it should more say like Aaron Rodgers / Brett Favre.
Yeah.
3%.
Pretty much. And then the 5th one is the Chicago Bulls because of one guy.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because his stuff is most desired and the most expensive.
2016 when they were still pretty relevant.
Well,
coming off a year or two.
You have millennials, 90s kids now coming into the expendable income range.
Yeah.
they're getting into their 30s.
Right.
It's just like I want the bullshit. Like I want
Mitchell
to
and Ness.
deck my walls with
right.
Jordan jerseys and Pippen and
the bullshit.
Yeah.
North Korean inscribed Dennis Rodman jerseys.
I've got one of those.
Yeah, Kim Jong-Ho.
So there's your top 5 teams in 2016. We'll call it. No surprises with the markets.
No. I see why the Giants were there.
Right. New York market's dominant.
They were better. They were definitely better then.
I would say the Giants are out and the Patriots are in that top 5 list.
I would flop that and not question it in 2019.
No,
and
absolutely.
Yeah.
As far as I don't see any basketball teams in the top 5 if we're doing it today.
And if we do, it's like LA now with LeBron and Davis.
Yep.
The Bulls holding down though that 2.4%. I can't see it moving that much though, just because it's a nostalgia market. It's not
Right.
based on current things. So I
Good.
think the Bulls sit still.
That's a very fair point. Like you said,
And
nostalgia market, because that guy, I don't know if you know Michael Jordan,
Yeah.
his
90s.
his value will never decrease.
No.
I don't think.
No, I don't see that happening ever, unless he like does something real bad.
Which I hope not.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing Chicago will always have to brag about is MJ.
We owned a decade.
Right.
This next part is what blows my mind, and even
Then, yeah, whenever this
2016,
was,
is like this cannot be
this
right.
doesn't make sense.
I need to talk to the guy who
So-
wrote this because there's no way that this is true, and it makes sense as to why the Giants are number 2, and we're talking about Eli Manning being number 1, ahead of Michael Jordan, Peyton Manning, Mickey Mantle, and Tom Brady.
There must have been some sort of like panic attack that Eli Manning was going to retire, or like something that we weren't aware
Well,
of.
I'm thinking, is this the year after the Giants that they just won a Super Bowl or something? That like in
Could be.
2015, that
Could be.
now these
But
guys are
even
out.
then, was this like something like we don't know if Eli Manning's like going out, so we're just going to invest in all his Super Bowl
I
shit?
would still wouldn't see
maybe
that many
Sports
people
Memorabilia
investing.
had like a exclusive or something with Eli Manning. They're trying to promote him because there's no way in any universe, any
Makes
year,
no sense.
you're telling me he's higher than Michael Jordan, his brother Peyton, Mickey Mantle, and Tom Brady. It's not even possible.
Whoever wrote this,
I need to see sources.
I
on
need
the
to see.
back of
Correct.
this
I was just gonna
packet.
say.
I would be very.
I'm not calling this guy a liar, but he's a liar.
Man.
Eli Manning, 2.1% of the memorabilia sales for that year,
No.
That's
and
unbelievable.
Michael Jordan's after that. Peyton Manning, Mickey Mantle, Tom Brady. Eli Manning
The only
tops
thing
the
I can
charts.
think of is that Eli Manning is right at that, or at this time was right at that cusp of being not as expensive as Brady and Jordan and his brother Peyton, but he was like the least expensive high tier guy. You know what I mean? And for whatever reason, he was
and-
just moving faster. He still had that high caliber player, but he wasn't at that super high price range that these other guys have.
He was
But
an
again,
he was an affordable
affordable
item that you would desire.
big headliner. Yeah, but again, even to me, it's like Eli Manning was never that exciting to where he's number 1 over those guys.
So
There's
affordable
no way.
headliners.
So looking at this list, I would say the Manning brothers dropping off, definitely
Yeah.
today
Yeah,
disappearing.
definitely.
I think Michael's at 1.8%. He probably is in the. I would say he's at 3. He sits at 3. Mickey Mantle at 4. I think Tom moves up to maybe the 2 spot.
Yep.
But who do we put at 1? That's my. I have hesitant. Anyone on this list actually moving up to 1?
I think it might be Michael Jordan or Tom Brady.
I think
Michael Jordan
Brady's
hasn't
one.
really done much in a while. LeBron could be in here. He's like,
Moving teams.
now these LA market.
I mean, the Space Jam memorabilia is going to be off the charts coming
True.
very soon.
I'm just kind of thinking of basketball. I don't think he's in top 5, but I think he's in maybe top 10. Steph Curry,
Kobe.
maybe Kobe. He's
See,
in the team photo.
I think since this list, I think Tom Brady's number 1.
Okay.
Jordan's 2.
Okay.
I don't think Peyton
Because
Manning
the football
is up
market
there.
has totally overtaken the industry.
Right.
So Brady
And-
being 1 makes sense.
Right. Brady's the most desirable item
Absolutely.
in the football market ever.
Bar none.
Mhm.
Brady, Jordan. I honestly don't see Mickey Mantle being up there.
But at 1.2%, if you play the percentage game, there's no way he dropped off.
No.
Even if a few things
Right.
sold, just a few jerseys changed hands or
Because
something,
he's super
because of the
expensive.
value, it's just going to keep him
True.
there.
No, that's true.
I think Mike Trout is up there.
Okay.
Ooh, yeah, baseball. Yeah, another
If we're
baseball.
talking
guy getting in
baseball,
there,
Aaron Judge possibly.
Judge, because he's
And
in New
then-
York.
Yeah. I'm thinking of like rookies, but there's probably some rookies in the top 50, but
yeah.
no.
Also, you look at this list. I don't think it's just for this year. I think this is all-time sellers.
Again, even more reason why Eli Manning should not
Yeah,
be
how
number
the-
1. I don't
But he
think-
could have had those 2 Super Bowl years.
No,
could have
that's
just
true. I
Thrown
just-
him over the top.
Have you ever met a guy and be like, dude, I PC Eli Manning? Never. Nothing against Eli Manning, but
'Cause
there's no way.
Because they really started tracking sports memorabilia in the 80s.
Uh-huh.
To my knowledge, the industry really started actually creating a snapshot of itself somewhere around the early 1980s. That being said, this list would actually not, if this is since then, this list probably didn't change.
Yeah. No, I believe that.
But if you're going by year, yeah, I think we're really on beat. But now that I think about it, if this is all time, this is probably pretty close to the same list.
Right. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Moving forward,
All right, what do we have for page 2?
the top 5 teams / players by popularity
Okay, so
in
what's
autographs.
this first part here? Is that the same thing we just looked at? Top 5 teams?
This is top 5. The other one we looked at was sales by team.
Okay,
And this
so
is
this-
top 5 teams by popularity.
Okay.
And this has got to be, this is definitely, now that you look at this is all time. This is definitely, since
All
they've
time.
been tracking this stuff.
Okay. Okay, I just again.
The Yankees are number one.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. I mean, it goes back to the same
Yankees,
thing.
Cowboys,
27
1,
rings
2.
history. Yeah.
So you want to read the list? What do we got for top 5 teams by
Go ahead.
popularity?
Oh, we got Yankees coming in at number 1.
No argument.
question.
Not America's team. The Cowboys at number 2.
No question.
No question. Yeah.
Which makes sense. The New York Football Giants at 3.
Which has changed since then.
I think that's
Again, even if we're talking all time, I think that's a stretch.
but Saquon and OBJ could have OBJ
Stayed.
and Saquon could have kept it there. I like 4. I understand Steelers. I mean the amount of Super Bowls they've won and
yeah,
just
that's a nationwide
The
team.
the
Pittsburgh
the deepest depth chart for autographs
and
might be Pittsburgh.
past
a
and
lot of
present.
dealers
it's
out there
just-
too.
And Green Bay. I mean, it makes sense. I argue to say that the Packers are America's football team.
Yeah, no, they definitely have nationwide fans. You can't argue that. They're right up there with the Cowboys and Steelers. I don't have any problem with this list, except again, Giants at 3 blows my mind. Even if it is all time, they had some down years here and there. I just outside of New York, I just don't see
I
it.
think those 2 Super Bowls really just put them
Really,
over the edge.
yeah.
Yep.
I believe it. I do. It's crazy.
I want to see the 49ers in this list over the Giants, just because they're laundry list of guys that you could desire for autographs. Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Steve Young, those guys.
Mm-hmm.
I could see the Packers staying in because they have such a fantastic fan base.
Yeah.
And they'll support their team no matter what. So they'll continue to bring in revenue and continue to bring in popularity. And by popularity, the Packers do a very good job. No question for the Yankees, Cowboys, or the Steelers. Absolutely not.
Right.
Because if you're a Steelers fan, you're a lifelong Steelers fan. I mean, you don't really cheer for anybody else. I mean, that's your guys' steel curtain. If you were a fan back then, you're just as much of a football fan as you are now.
I agree with you with the 49ers because I feel like for all these teams, and Yankees included, you live in any state, you go to a show in any state, you're going to run into somebody or know somebody that I live in Virginia, but I'm a Steelers fan. I live in California, but I'm a Steelers fan. I don't see that being like, hey, I live in Oregon, but I'm a New York Giants fan.
Mm-hmm.
No,
That's just not a team that you have an affiliation with outside of New York City. Where the other 4 teams, you can think of one person in your life that is a fan of them, and they never even lived anywhere close to that city.
You would have to have grown up in New York to be a Giants.
And even
fan.
then, it's
for the
like
most part.
For the most part, yeah. For the most, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you think of Lawrence Taylor back in the day and the Bill Parcells era and stuff, and they were good teams, but it's nowhere near the Super Bowls and the long list of history that these other 4 teams have.
Agreed.
Now, just to the right of this column is the top 5 players by popularity. And not calling the guy who wrote this a liar.
Holy
shit. We need to see some sort of backup here.
I want numbers, man.
Some sort of numbers.
We need to get this
because
guy
this is
phone.
We gotta
insane.
audit this.
This is insane. Eli Manning is atop the charts for players by popularity.
Nope.
Of all time.
We've already wasted enough breath
Of all
talking
time.
about that. That's not it.
I have to readjust myself in the chair because
I love Eli.
I mean, I don't really care. I'm indifferent.
Right. Again, nothing against Eli. It's just
This
is
no
stupid.
way he's over these other
It's
guys.
insane.
So
Because number
once-
2 is Peyton Manning.
Yep, his brother.
Number 3 is Chipper Jones.
Okay.
Tough.
I mean, the Braves
Tough.
owned the 90s in terms of
Right.
like baseball. I mean, everyone at one point growing up as a baseball fan
Right.
like wanted to be Chipper Jones.
Oh, absolutely.
Am I surprised in the top 5? Am I surprised he's up here? No. Am I
Yes.
surprised he's in the top 5? Yes.
Yes, that's better.
And TBS doing what WGN did back in the 60s, bringing. I mean,
Yeah.
Braves games growing up as a kid were when I wasn't watching the Cubs. The Brave games were on.
And that's
TV.
not on anymore, right? They don't do
I
TBS?
don't think they do it
can't.
anymore.
It doesn't
But
recall, I don't recall.
Braves games were always on, so it was
Right.
one of those things. And then also, what's his name? Chip Carey going over from Chicago. Too.
True.
So it was I love Chipper Jones growing up.
Yeah, I don't argue that pick. It's surprising he's number 3.
Questionable murderer Ray Lewis.
Surprising. I get
Hot
why he's
take?
in here. I wouldn't put him as my number. Call it 2-3 football
Right.
player. No way.
That one's kind of tough.
Again, 2016, kind of somewhat off. No, not that much off a Super Bowl. His last year was what, 2013 or 14 or whatever.
Was that it?
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll go forward.
Super
And then
Bowl.
number 5 says Joe Montana
Yeah,
by
he's
popularity.
Definitely. I mean, he's definitely up there.
Yeah, I could see that one. I could see Peyton and Joe Montana in the list of popularity for players ever. None of the other 3.
This had to have shifted.
Oh, 100%. I don't think any of these guys,
absolutely
even
had to.
Montana, I don't think is in here top 5.
These top 5 by popularity have changed. All 5.
100%.
All 5.
LeBron comes
Chipper
to mind,
Jones at
right away.
3 though. I like
LeBron.
to see percentage wise too because
Yeah, they don't have numbers with this one.
yeah.
LeBron's got to be in here. We're talking basketball. He's number
Oh,
1.
yeah. Everybody knows LeBron James.
And if we segue down to the memorabilia sales by U.S. state, and these top 5 states represent 40% of all total revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So only 5 states are making literally 40% of the map. California at 11.2%.
Yeah.
New
Makes-
York at 8.9 makes
Mm-hmm.
makes a lot of sense. Texas, Cowboys,
Cowboys.
makes a lot of sense. Florida, interesting to me, Florida market, but it seems like a lot of guys who work in the industry
Right.
are from Florida.
Well, I think so too. Is Florida is such a melting pot of retirees that I think it's not even the fact that it's Florida. It's just the fact that it's people who retired
Right.
moved down there and they're from all over the country.
Correct.
They're buying memorabilia
They're-
for Florida, but they're still hammering New York and California.
Yeah, I could see that totally. I mean, retirees that are just looking to either expand their memorabilia collection or just have a ton of time on their hands.
Right.
And that's all they do. Maybe
'Cause
they just collect players that they used
We're
to
not
like.
talking about Marlins or Dolphins or
Right.
Heat, Miami Heat. That's no one's buying memorabilia for those teams.
And
unless it's Dan Marino.
the last state
I was
makes
gonna say.
the last state makes sense being New York's
Yeah.
sewer system, New
New
Jersey.
That should be one state. New York, New Jersey really should be
Yeah.
one state. It's the same fan base basically, unless you're a Devils fan.
Moving forward, total memorabilia sales each league represents. Some thoughts after
This is
one.
actually concrete evidence has changed.
Oh, really?
Right
I
off
was
the
going
bat-
to say this is the one that I would think would hold up the most in 2019.
So right off the bat, I did running some reports on this earlier because we actually do have jobs here. We don't just talk into microphones.
Sure.
Unfortunately,
Believe it or not, we help this company prosper and move forward. Yeah. We like to pretend we do. Anyways, the NFL now makes up 45%
Okay,
of sports
I would
memorabilia
agree with
sales.
that
So
if
they have
anything goes
jumped
up.
almost 10% or over 10%.
So on this graph I have in front of me, it says 34%
Okay.
as
Correct.
of
So you want to read it off for the
yeah.
the
So
listeners?
we'll do. It says 34% for the NFL, 26% for the MLB, 10% for the NBA, 7% college, just college, and 7% for the NHL.
And when we were talking college, basically football and then maybe a little bit of basketball. in
Right.
there.
And
So you have some updated stats on this?
well, the only updated stat that I have concrete that I can cite, I don't know where the hell I got it from, but I can prove. Like I
It's on
truly
the
believe
internet.
It's on the internet.
That
So
means
it
it
must
must be
real.
right.
It's
Yeah.
real.
Is the NFL makes up now 45% of the industry.
Mm.
I totally agree with that.
And I mean that just makes sense based on daily what we do.
Right.
That absolutely. I don't think MLB percentage wise, I think it's in second. I don't think it's changed. The only thing I think that's changed on this list is maybe by 1% the NHL jumped college. Because the ratings for the Stanley Cup and things have been going up, adding a new team, adding the prospect of Seattle coming on, I think they may have gained one. I mean, they're tied right now with college. So all it takes is 1% to jump them.
Yeah, I could see that. I'll play the opposite just for fun and say Zion with college might have helped, and then college football last couple years with the bowl
Yeah, I was gonna
championship,
agree with you.
Final Four,
I was going to
Kyler Murray,
say,
Baker, all that stuff.
if anything, the NHL lost points. Just because, we're in the industry here. We don't see a ton of NHL stuff move. This is not the...
Yeah, and I was going to mention that too with all, we're coming off all these shows, the Nationals coming up. A lot of it is, Nationals a lot of older guys, but when you go to these not smaller, but CSA and GTSM, it's mostly football guys, with
Right.
a couple of your bigger name retired baseball players, whatever. The industry seems to be all over football, so I have no doubt
Right.
NFL is maybe even higher than 45% as time goes on. NHL college, I could totally see being down there still, 7-8%. Flipping back and forth. NBA, they market really well, but I don't think there's a huge collectors
Sure.
environment for the NBA, even though they're probably the best at marketing their league. And then MLB will always be the same. It's kind of an retiree sport to where you'll always have your collectors, but they don't sell like NFL does.
Sure. I agree with you totally. NFL may even be higher than that after this
it's
year.
Just us
It's
being
just
around
the
it every
way
day,
that
it's
the
just
industry's moving and
Mm-hmm.
what everybody wants and everybody
98%
wants.
of our conversations, if not 100% of our daily activity around here, centers around NFL and the players and their items and all that stuff.
Right. What can we do to move with the trends of the NFL?
Right. That's kind of
I mean, you have 53 guys on a roster.
true.
It's always changing. You have guys on the practice squad coming up
Right.
and making impact during the season.
Right.
So you think about it, you can almost have 60 possible players per 32 teams.
Good point.
There's always, and then there's just always a market.
Right. That's true. And college football helps a ton.
Well, it's a feeder system, so
Right.
you're growing. If a guy does well in college, he's eventually going to get
Right.
drafted.
You're a Kyler
And
Murray
Right.
fan before he gets drafted, and then it just translates over to the NFL.
Correct.
MLB, you don't have that. NBA, you do, but it's just like you said, smaller rosters, not as much people to market.
I agree. I mean, I could see the MLB growing at just a hair.
MLB's
Sense.
always going to be the MLB. It'll always be number 2. It'll always be right around that 20%, but it's never going to blow anyone away just because the nature of the sport is what people consider boring, which, everyone has their own opinion.
So the last thing, actually second to last thing on this sheet is Memorabilia sales by category, and this represents 77% of total revenue for memorabilia sales.
And I want to preface this with saying this one, in our opinion, has changed the most.
Absolutely.
By 1,000%. It's crazy.
Correct. So, quickly before the list goes, it says average price for a piece of autographed memorabilia is $180.
Okay.
I think that's changed.
I think it's
drastically
gone up because of what we think is going to be easily
Exactly.
Yep.
I'd say about 225, 215.
I'd say about 225. 225 is average, maybe around 200.
I could see it being more,
Okay.
but we'll get into it.
Right. Well, we'll see.
I don't want to jump the gun. Jerseys make up 24% of revenue. 24%, followed by photos at 23%. Helmets are at 8%, baseballs are at 8%, footballs are at 5%, mini helmets are at 3%, basketballs are at 2%, baseball bats are at 2%, and hockey pucks are at an astounding 1%
Whoa.
Surprising they're even on there.
of sales by
I'm
category.
surprised baseball bats is honestly 2 over pucks. I would think pucks would actually be higher. But when I started here, I can confirm this data. When I started here about 3 years ago, jerseys were just filled all of our inventory room. I mean, that was everything was jerseys. And then honestly, we had maybe this little shelf of helmets. And it was like, I remember when we came back from one of our shows and it was like, yeah, we're going to do some of these ice helmets. And they were so easy to get. They were ice. And it was for Ty Law Patriots. And we had like 5 or 6 and they sat there for like 6 months. And
So
we had
odd.
like 3 or 4 guys, like on helmets.
Mhm.
And then now, as we all know, it is just opposite.
I mean,
You can't buy 5 ice helmets.
You can't buy limited edition any helmets unless you put a pre-order in or whatever.
We are floor to ceiling helmets.
And we're like
That's true.
busting at the seams with like 1, 2, 3 shelves of jerseys and just a whole entire stock room of just helmets. Again,
And
overflowing.
right, and then the second thing on the list is photos at 23%. We don't have one autographed photo in this whole place.
No, and they move. Like if you look at different wholesalers and auction sites, photos are out there.
Sure.
No doubt. It's just not being circulated as much as it once was.
And it's easy to store. It's easy to frame a photo. That's why they're up there, I'm guessing, at this time. And they're cool. You can get a pretty cool action shot of a photo and have the guy in the play
Right.
autograph it. And it's a very cool
It's
item.
Inexpensive way to get your favorite
Exactly.
autograph for sure.
But this list, I would love to see an updated one because I bet helmets are at 85%. Jerseys maybe at 5%.
It's hard to say. I think helmets have jumped, and I would say it's probably like in the 30 to 40 range, just because we deal with helmets a lot. I think there are a lot of other smaller collectors.
Yeah,
out
I
there
guess
who, like I said,
I
do
over-exaggerate.
the auction sites. But no, you're right. I mean, as far as us on a daily basis, it is 80% helmet. But I think mini helmets and footballs and baseballs have probably stayed within the 3 to 10% range.
Mhm.
They're still collected very often,
Mhm.
but just not as much as helmets. And I think jerseys has taken a dip because a lot of people want to collect. I mean, when you have a collection, you love it. You're almost addicted to getting that new stuff. Jerseys, what do you got to do every time you get a jersey? You got to frame it. So that's
Right.
costs the price of the item half the time.
So displaying takes up so much wall
So what are you
space.
going to
Sure.
do with a helmet? You get a helmet, you go to IKEA, you get these sweet, shelves for $60-$70, and then you get a helmet and you're done. I mean, the investment you put into the helmet is the investment you would put into a jersey and its frame. So
Mhm.
it's easier just to
Mhm.
swap helmets because you can trade them easier. You're not selling frames. You put them on your shelf, you're done, and you don't have to.
But
do
here's the
anything.
thing. Once you get a helmet case or 4 helmets, you can't just put one helmet in
Oh
your helmet
yeah,
case.
it starts with one helmet case with 4
It
helmets. You
starts
go,
with-
man, this would look cool if there was 2, and then next thing you know, well, I can get one for every division because there's 4 slots.
I'm going to have
Yeah.
all the Blaze helmets
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
autographed.
And then I'm going to get one of every team, and then it's just a never-ending story. But
Right.
again, you can get 16 helmets across this wall where you can maybe fit 2 jersey frames, if that. So
Right.
it's just easier.
It's true. They're
Easier
easier
to
to
collect.
store, harder to obtain.
Harder to
They are
obtain.
more
yeah.
expensive. But this brings me into the average price for a piece of autographed memorabilia after
Oh,
all
yeah.
things said and
Yeah.
done. I think it's right around $250.
Okay.
Average piece of memorabilia. Just because helmets, pro lines, everybody wants pro lines.
Yep.
And an unsigned pro line is $200.
Which pro line is another word. Riddell's word for
Riddell's
authentic.
authentic, shut
Right.
authentic, things
Yeah.
like that. Riddell Pro Line is the most desirable item
Speed.
there is.
Speed.
Pro Line. And you were looking at, let's see if I got a Speed Pro right
Basically
here.
all
Tom
of
Brady, right there. I
And
mean,
then Rashawn Gary up
yeah,
there.
Rashawn Gary.
And then that would just be I think a regular.
It's Riddell
line.
Pro Line,
Yeah.
right? But it's a special edition. Again, another super desirable item.
Right.
And it's the helmet itself is $200
Yeah.
to bring to a
for
signing
authentic.
unsigned,
Yep.
right?
At least.
So there's nobody there that you would get on a pro line that's not worth it, right?
Right.
So
You'd
$200. I think $180 is lower than it is now. I think it's right around $225 to $250 for an average item.
Yeah,
if you want
for
to
helmet, we're talking.
Yeah,
helmet.
and
I think.
that makes sense.
being that helmets are the top dog in
Right.
the category.
Yeah,
now.
I think it's definitely went up. I think it's overall item 200, 250.
can see it.
Right in that range. Just because helmets have totally
Sweet deal.
taken over. I think we got one more page.
One more page.
Yeah, let's talk a little authentication.
Okay, yeah, this is the one how I knew this data was old because I'll tell you why in a second here.
Main authentication agencies.
Do you want to hand it over to Adam for this one?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it lists 3 here. The first one being Professional Sports Authenticator, PSA DNA, which they're very much still in business. They do a fantastic job, as well as James Spence Authentication, another company that's very top of the line. No issues there. The third one is Global Authentics, better known as GA. They are no longer in business because I wouldn't say maybe it was a scandal, but they were just passing everything and anything for a time. I don't know if it was financial or what. They're no longer in business because a lot of their stuff proved to be fake from these other authentication companies. If you have anything GA, you might want to get that double checked, or going forward, don't buy anything that's GA because were called into question. The third one I would put in here, though, another good company is Beckett Authentication. They do a very good job as well. The 3 of those guys are very comparable, very legitimate. I would use those 3 all day, every day, but I would stay far away from Global Authentic.
Okay.
Any company that's not a company anymore, authentication company, that's no longer a company,
There's
you
a
probably
reason
shouldn't-
why.
should
There's
probably
a
stay away
reason
from
you
why
probably
they're
should
not
stay
a
away
company
from it.
anymore.
Yeah.
An interesting tidbit on the side here. It says the licensed market size for sports memorabilia is $12 billion, and of that, the autograph market size is $2 billion. So autograph sports memorabilia makes up $2 billion of the $12 billion sports licensing market.
And I bet that has even gone up.
Yeah.
Another number that has only gone up.
And it's fun fact for you guys running the reports here at the job we work.
Right.
Sports memorabilia actually grew during the recession in 2007, 2008.
Really?
The whole housing market crash and everything. It actually grew 3% over
And
that.
why so?
It's just people still the collectors still found ways to spend their money on collectibles.
I totally
it's
agree.
an addition. It
is
really
an addiction.
is.
I
And
know. Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
I
Trust
know.
me when I tell you.
know.
I know.
when you look at all the things that died in that recession, the fact that one of the most something that you can absolutely survive without and
Right.
you don't need, and
It depends.
Yeah.
I wonder if it grew because people sold some of their hard to get things
Right.
and whatnot. But yeah, it grew.
Yeah, I believe
So-
it. Like I said, it's almost, we look at it like gambling. It's different, but it's like you do it once, you just get addicted
Oh yeah.
to trading and
Mhm.
buying and getting good deals. It's definitely an addiction.
Raz.
I can
is-
see the market. I can see
Yeah.
the market actually growing more with the legalization of sports gambling because it's
Yep.
just going to find ways.
Sure.
Because not only do you want to win money, but if I go to a sports book and come home with an autographed helmet, I'm gonna be even more fucking happy than I was
Right.
with just cash. Because
Right.
you might have. It just adds a component
Right.
to, it's the take home, the tangible stuff.
Right.
So
Right.
And
And
sports
guess-
memorabilia, it seems to age. It's not like it's one of those things like, if you're going to buy technology, invest $1,000 in a TV, that TV within 10 years is going to be totally irrelevant. But, your Brett Favre helmet or your whatever, Tom
Right.
Brady helmet should only go up if you treat it well.
And there's
so.
stories behind every item that you get.
Right. It's a talking point.
yeah, absolutely.
But Adam, I have a question. So you mentioned the authentication services. PSA was number 1, James Spence. JSA was number 2, and Global Authentics is 3. What do you think that list looks like now? Do you think
It's hard to say because based off where you live regionally, you might kind of go one guy or the other. I mean, for the most part, all these companies are global.
just not Global Authentics anymore?
Just not global authentic, not that global. I would say you see a lot of Beckett now. Beckett's done a really good job
Sure.
of putting themselves
Yeah.
in a lot of wholesaler and businesses' hands and making themselves very available for signings. Again, nothing against any of the companies. I think they're all extremely legitimate. You see PSA and DNA a lot on like History Channel. If you're watching American Pickers and Pawn Stars, they've been around, I would say, the longest. James Spence has been around too. You see James Spence a lot at these signings. So I say it's pretty equal, but I think we see Beckett come through here a little bit more than the other guys.
Sure.
Lately.
Like these fun
Agree.
facts down here. You guys been looking at the.
We'll
fun
get
facts
there. We'll
section?
get there.
All right.
I'm
I
looking
think-
at the major auction.
Are we
house
talking about
now.
auction houses?
Wait.
I mean,
Yeah, sure.
I was gonna go on a quick tangent. Going into the grading of cards between
yeah.
the two.
Oh, yeah.
Beckett, I would prefer something that's like a Beckett 9.5 over a PSA 10.
And why is that?
I like the I think the
Beckett's
gold
a-
slabs look better.
Beckett looks a little more 2019. They're a little more up with the times. PSA has that like very like typewriter.
Yeah, exactly.
80s, 90s.
Exactly. I don't like
slab.
the way. Right. I like
Yeah.
the slabs. I like the look of the slabs better on Beckett stuff.
People prefer that. I mean, people prefer Beckett over
And-
PSA or PSA over Beckett because they like the way they grade better.
And the Beckett, they're more difficult to obtain a high grade with, I believe.
Yeah.
And you could send them to PSA and just get slipped right through as a PSA 10. All of a
Yeah,
sudden,
never
you can
know.
send it to Beckett and get a 9.
And I think it's
So,
funny because I think people say the opposite.
Really?
So I think it just depends on the person.
It's
But
the airline conversation.
I think,
Exactly. It really is.
but the Beckett 10s go for more than a PSA 10 on the same card.
I believe that. But do you think that's more so because
It's harder to get a 10.
okay, in your opinion?
That's fine. I mean,
yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong either. I'm just it's a
but you're wrong.
because grading is subjective. I mean, you can
Right.
give one guy a card and he
Correct.
can say it's a 9, and give one guy say it's a 10
Or an 8.5.
or an 8.5. Yeah,
we should have a contest. We should have
Puke
a,
emoji.
we should get representatives from each of these companies and give them the exact same card.
that it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to bring like do like a blind test and
That'd be
bring
really cool.
The two
That'd be
companies
very cool.
in and see what would you grade this, why, what would you grade this, why, and you could probably do it if you could rip open the slab of one that you sent to PSA and then
Right.
rip it up and send to Beckett, but that would be expensive in kind of
Pointless.
ways.
But it's a cool study.
it's a cool study.
Cool study
for
if
sure
you were
would
to do
be.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
right underneath that, the major auction houses.
Which I can't really.
There's only one that I know.
We know Pristine well. Pristine's a good
Right.
auction house. Nothing but good things to say about them. And then I've heard of Heritage and Hunt. I'm not sure about American or SCP, but as long as it's certified by a legitimate third-party authenticator or first-party, whether it be Fanatics or Steiner, you're good. As long as that's what the auction house is selling. But yeah, if that's what the top 5 are, then sure.
Yeah.
Go. I believe them.
Still good old eBay for me.
Yeah, eBay's. I guess you
Right.
don't consider that an auction house, but that would probably be number 1 if you did.
Sure, absolutely. Sports memorabilia trade shows, national and regional. There are 1,000 shows a year.
Yeah.
Is that
That
what
ma-
that?
that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you could
I
have
think
one at the
there's-
Moose Club with 20 tables. Call that.
Yeah.
I mean, sure.
That's
it's-
happened. That
Yeah, that happens all the time. I
Yeah.
mean, they have local shows all the time.
I would think it's more now in
Yeah, It
2019.
probably is more. Yeah. I
Being
can
that
see
the industry's so popular right now, I think there's probably one every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, I know there is around here, so I
Right.
agree.
So a couple fast facts. RJ, you've been eyeballing these fast facts.
I
You wanna
haven't read
run-
one
They're-
yet. Read
They're
them off.
interesting. All
Right,
right, ready?
Hit me.
Number 1, there is memorabilia in circulation across 23,000 athletes.
Very cool.
I would say again more. Just now with Facebook being
More,
such a
yeah,
huge mover.
absolutely. But and then goes to show you too the odds of becoming a professional athlete. We're talking all-time
Right.
professional athletes. Only
Yeah, that's true.
23,000.
True.
Second one, what
Definitely
is it?
more now.
There is memorabilia in circulation across 516 teams.
That's a lot.
So what's 3 times? Okay, so that's got to be.
And this is global.
international-
This is
Yeah,
absolutely global. Yeah.
international.
Soccer clubs. I mean,
minor-
there's so many
Yeah, I
soccer
mean,
clubs. minor league
Soccer
baseball.
would probably make up. I would say
Yeah.
300
I mean,
at least.
think
out
about
of
how many
those 500
teams are defunct, leagues that are defunct. I mean, it's just
AAF,
yeah. R.I.P.
Rip.
Memphis Express.
You think this one
I
holds
couldn't
true?
name
Ready?
one team.
4.4 million. That's the number. That's the most expensive piece of memorabilia ever sold. It's a Babe Ruth game-used jersey circa 1920s.
Cool.
Do you think that's? I mean, I can't imagine that would have changed. Just
I mean,
see
I
it
hope
either.
it didn't because honestly, like I'm as big as a collector you're ever gonna meet. But you're telling me I could spend 4.4 million on one item, or
Yeah.
I could spend 4.4 million on about 4 million items. I would
a
probably
cornucopia of treasures.
Yeah, I would buy
That's
a house.
good.
I'd buy a house just
That was
to
nice.
fill with memorabilia and not just have that one jersey.
You could buy the house as well with
Right.
all that.
That's what I mean. Buy the
cornucopia
house and
treasure.
fill the house with memorabilia of that 4.4, and you would have a really sweet house.
$4.4 million.
Nothing is that worth it.
One jersey.
I don't care who wore it.
I
it's
mean,
not worth
if you're Jeff Bezos rich, then
yeah, if
I
you're
guess
Tack it on my
400
wall.
billion,
Yeah.
yeah, then yeah. Just
It's like
why
people
not?
people invest that much in art.
It's crazy.
it is an
it's-
investment. That is
it's-
absolutely because
True.
barring that is in a a climate controlled area,
Right.
whatnot.
I don't see that raising.
10
value,
more year-
though.
10, 20 more years when or how about when it hits its 200th anniversary?
Right.
when
Or the
he's-
guy dies or something. Yeah, he's never gonna.
I mean,
make another one.
next year, arguably, I guess it depends what year the jersey was actually worn. It's going to be a 100-year-old jersey that was worn in a game 100 years ago. So it is one of those things to.
Yeah, it is an investment, and it'd be curious to see because I think a lot of those. I mean, don't you hear about like, oh, this guy bought the rights to this music or this guy bought this painting? Isn't it oftentimes like? Sometimes it is like a business, like this group, whatever group bought this. And
Yeah.
Then, like, sit on it for like
Sure.
5 years and then sell it to someone else.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could see that. That probably makes sense.
$4.4 million for one jersey.
Oh, I mean,
You know what kind of damage I could do?
That's
$4.4
what I mean.
million.
Buy a house and fill the house with the
Yeah.
other $4 million.
or
that
how
you
about
need.
live comfortably the rest
Yeah.
of your life?
Nah,
No,
Yeah.
just
I'm taking those Yankee pinstripes.
Yeah.
all right. All
And
right.
I'm wearing it. I'm wearing
And
it.
then
I'm putting it on
the
day one.
the final fact: 93% of sales happen in the U.S.
Which,
of course it does.
To me, it kind of contradicts itself
Mm.
because they're talking about 516 teams
Right.
in circulation, and if we're talking about 516 teams, that means we're at least talking about a couple hundred soccer teams, which would happen outside the U.S. But
I mean, that counts, but you're counting minor league. I mean, it's
sure, no, I agree.
It's everything. So I guess if you look at the big four leagues, throw in the MLS because whatever.
yeah, it's growing. I mean,
Throw in the
feel like
US,
they have a
the
new team every
USL
year.
because it exists and there's probably something that's been sold, so
Sure.
it has to go on there. Throw in every minor league team, every university.
Right. Yeah, college too. That's probably that's probably
It
what
really
it is.
does take up the fact that, I mean, how do you classify like all the golfers in the history of time? They're from different countries,
True.
but the PGA Tour technically happened in the United
United
States.
States.
So how does that
Founding.
classify? I mean, it's just
That's what you're right.
is one player a team? Does that if you buy
Right.
something from a golfer, is that
Could be.
considered a category? So a team.
That would make
No.
more sense because with college and then individual sport athletes, swimmers, Michael Phelps, golfers, Tiger Woods, consider them a team or a NASCAR guy even. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
at least 40 guys in NASCAR that people probably collect,
So,
if not
Yeah.
more.
I mean, we are.
That's good.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think that actually makes sense.
The thing that probably hurts that 7%, and it could be more, is just like you said, soccer.
Or Canada.
Canada, yeah,
Canada's buying
absolutely.
a lot of-
With hockey
Because
stuff.
we see it in guys we deal with and customers. There's just as many
Yeah.
football fans in Canada as there is.
Don't
Sure.
forget the CFL,
CFL, yeah.
Sure,
Winnipeg,
the
Blue
National Lacrosse League.
Bombers. Yeah.
but
Yes,
you know
NLL.
that's the end of the packet there. But I just want to kind of mention, the point behind this is how much this industry is changing,
Totally.
how much this is progressing. I think.
It's weird to think where we're going to be in 3 years from now. Because
Right.
again, when I started 3 years ago, it was jerseys. Helmets were okay. They were cool. They
Did you
weren't
do,
even
there was no minis at all either, was there?
mini.
Mini
It was
helmets?
mostly jerseys. I mean, people wanted jerseys. And then they kind of all came into football and minis, and then helmets were coming too, and then helmets really took off. Minis and footballs took off, but then helmets totally overtook it, and now helmets kind of dominate the whole.
It's
the
true.
whole
It's
scope
very
of
true.
it.
And it's good that you've kind of seen that
Yeah.
kind of
So again,
rise
it's
to
like,
stardom for helmets.
I'm curious to see if it's like a wheel, if we're going to go back to jerseys and photos and whatever, and then helmets are going to die
chance.
out. But
I can't see it.
I just with Facebook now and social media and everything, it just
Chrome speed
don't-
flexes.
Riddell's doing a very good job, and Shutt is too. But Riddell really does a good job since they have the licensed NFL deal with coming out with new different like chromes and flat black and I think they're coming out with a flat white coming up soon or
Yeah.
something like that. So they do a good job of keeping themselves relevant and new.
Sure.
So yeah,
They give people another chase item,
right,
and as long as they keep giving people chase items, they're going to make sales.
right. So it's only they're going to keep that up forever.
It's good. It was good. It was a good top. I mean,
It's
awesome little packet that you made up.
the industry is it's interesting to me. Like I said, being on the team side of things for the last almost 10 years.
Yeah,
It's fun to be here. It's fun to be on the collector side because
Yeah.
we all grew up. I mean, whether it was just buying a jersey at training camp in Green Bay or wearing a Cubs hat, or you grew up a sports
right.
memorabilia collector.
We do interviews now for new employees or whatever, and you ask them, are you a collector? And they go, no, I'm not really a collector now, but I was as a kid, but I'm a huge sports fan now. It's like, well, you're going to be because
Yeah.
you can't work in this industry and not just get
Become
your
a collector.
hands on
It's true.
everything. So
it's very true. Everybody,
we can speak for that.
when you kind of see your favorite players coming around here, and you want to put that in your house. I mean, it's something
It's
you
an
want to put in your
experience.
house.
Yeah,
it's
it's an
awesome.
experience.
Well, it's hard too for us. Like you interview a guy, and it's hard not to be like, you want to just sign this helmet that I happen to have
Yeah,
placed next to me that
Right.
belongs to myself.
Right. So it's a lot of fun.
So exactly.
it's good stuff. It's good stuff. Eli Manning.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do some research.
You know,
on that 'cause
I think
there's no
we
way.
just need to get him on the show and talk.
Yeah.
With Eli, do you know how popular
Well,
he
he
was?
got in
know
trouble.
why
He
you're
got in trouble
popular?
for that thing where he was like caught. He got text messages
the
texting
helmets,
the equipment manager, being like,
Fake.
"Hey, I need game use helmets. Just get me whatever,
Just like
helmet,
whatever,
or whatever."
yeah.
And then, you never heard about that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I want to say I don't want to
2 years
who
ago.
it was, but yeah, a company. I want to say a company had him and they were trying to get him either game use stuff or an auction or just for like their website or whatever. And he was like, they have text messages of him asking the equipment manager, like, just give me whatever, just give me whatever.
Just find some helmets that I
Yeah.
might have worn or that someone else wore. Get the right face masks on them and
Right.
stuff, and just send them out.
We'll use it. We'll market it as like game use, and it was like a whole big scandal. And didn't he get like investigated or something?
Yeah, I mean,
or-
they went for a lot of money, so
Yeah.
that's why it was
right. You know,
Mm-mm-mm.
you can't sell
Rightfully
sell a guy that's
Good old Eli.
yeah.
beautiful.
Well, I think that's all she wrote for this episode.
Sign us
It
up.
was fun. That was a good chat.
It was.
Yeah, again, thanks everybody for watching and listening in here at Fresh Ink. Just excited about the viewership that we're getting. The higher production value should go a long way.
Yeah,
We
definitely
really hope
helps.
it does. And I guess we'll see you guys next time.
See you later.